On the first day of school Monday in Woodstock, Georgia, students posed for this photo, not a mask in sight. An hour and a half east in the state's largest school district, 260 school employees have already tested positive or been asked to quarantine after being exposed to coronavirus, with in-person learning set to start later this month.
It's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is.
In the United States, there have been more than 4.8 million reported cases. The number of American lives lost to the virus has now surpassed 160,000. And
it's going away. No, it'll go away. Like things go away. Absolutely. It's no question in my mind. It will go away. Please go ahead. Hopefully sooner rather than later. There are those that say you can test too much. You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books? Do you read your written brief?
I do. I read a lot.
Really?
You know, I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your daily intelligence
I comprehend
brief?
extraordinarily well.
When they gaze upon Yosemite, shifting production to Thailand.
Probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time. Coronavirus, the coronavirus. Surgical gowns, 1,870,000 million tests.
This was the 2016 map. Remember, Trump with 306 electoral votes, 232 for Hillary Clinton. So this is where it landed. Now, I'm going to show you what the NBC News map looks like right now. We've got Biden at 334 right now, Trump only at 125. So what are the changes? 6 states here. 6 states that Trump won in 2016 that we now have leaning to the Biden column. And then there's an additional 4 here: Texas, Georgia, Ohio, Iowa. And again, these were solid Trump margins in 2016, all moving to the undecided, to the toss-up column right here.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm Barry Gordon.
I'm James Farr.
And this is NewsRap, live at 5.
The local edition.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to NewsRap. I am back with our buddy, James Farr. It is Andre Coleman's birthday. And apparently, at the last second, his family surprised him. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't able to do the show, but we were lucky enough. Wow. Really talk about short notice, to get James with us. And James, really, thank you so much and welcome.
Hey, Barry, thanks. And then I got to tell you, and Andre, I apologize. You have some horrible friends and a horrible co-host, because if the best gift they could get you was me sitting in your seat, you need to change your friends.
I think that was a pretty good gift. I do. So, but hey, happy birthday, Dre.
Yes, sir. Happy birthday, Dre.
We miss you. We love you. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much. And all right.
Hey, Barry.
So
and I gotta
it
tell
is
you,
what it is. That's
Is it really?
I know. Jimmy Fallon had a thing on, and he said that it's as if when Pearl Harbor happened, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt went on the radio and said, "Hey, what are you going to do?" I mean, what kind of response is that to what is happening?
You know what kind of response it is, Barry? Do you know? It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. And I think in November it's going to be what it is, and it ain't going to be him.
Well, I don't know. And I'm certainly not a Trump supporter, but I don't count out him yet. I mean, I know.
But you never can count him out. No.
Right.
No.
I mean, for single voters, single issue voters, sure.
But that map looks pretty good. And that battleground map. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're saying right now that you're not counting Florida as a toss-up, you're making it blue. You're not counting Arizona, you're making it blue. You're not counting North Carolina, you're making it blue. And the toss-up states are Texas, Georgia, Ohio, and Iowa. Something's going on. If that's true.
You know,
we heard. Go ahead.
As I was saying, I read somewhere, and this is why I say the nation has to be cautious, because only one or two sitting presidents in the however many last cycles have actually been fired, like not reelected. And so it's not, it's not an absolute. Yeah. And we can't forget that the guy got a lot of votes last time. I mean, he didn't get the popular, but there were a lot of people.
Yeah, but he did not get the popular. And actually, I was doing some research, and I've mentioned it on the show before, and it's really surprised me that since 1988, the Democrats have won the popular vote in every election except for 2004.
But was that the year? Who was in that election? That wasn't.
That was Bush's reelection.
Bush's, yes.
And that's the only one. Other than that, the Democrats have won the popular vote every time. So, with the kind of myth that we're a conservative Republican country, we're really not. It's the Electoral College.
Yes.
But if he wins big enough, the Electoral College comes along with it. So, you know what I mean? It's just the nature of it that it will move in that, in that direction. And it's only if it's very, very close that you have a situation where someone could win the popular vote, lose the Electoral College. And of course, that's what happened 4 years ago.
If he loses, does he leave quietly? What does that look like?
See, that's a really good question, isn't it? And I don't know. I mean, what the Constitution says, and I did a little research on that too. What the Constitution says is that on January 20th, the new president is going to take office. And if there is no new president, in other words, if he tries to litigate it and it's not decided, then Nancy Pelosi takes office.
Okay.
And that's in the Constitution. That's in the 20th Amendment. So I don't think you can get around that one.
I mean, but wouldn't it be something to see them, the Secret Service or the military, kind of like dragging him over the wall that he put up to block the protesters?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be
I'd love to see, drag him into Lafayette Park. Yeah, I know.
So really, I mean, seriously though, so if Pelosi, if that scenario played out, which he's already said that, voting by mail has a propensity for fraud, he's going to litigate this thing.
He's going to litigate it, but he can't litigate it past January 20th.
Right. But also, I don't have the exact date, but I know that the election is not certified until sometime in December.
Yeah, because that's when the Electoral College
meets.
That's right.
That's when
that's when it happens.
That's when it's official.
Exactly.
So you're talking about 30 days. Boy, that'll be an interesting holiday. Since we can't go anywhere, we can't watch parades.
I know.
We could watch drag Trump out, I mean, it's and then we hear him.
I know. I think that, I mean, unless it's incredibly close, he doesn't have a prayer in litigation. So it would have to be that close. And right now, it's just not looking that. I'm just saying right now. I'm not saying it can't change. But the question I start to ask myself is, how does it change and why does it change? Does he suddenly get smart? Does he suddenly, find a solution? Does he find a vaccine on November 2nd? I mean, what happens that would turn it around? Because right now, everything he's doing is moving in the wrong direction for him.
Absolutely. And he's not helping himself especially with how he has continued to fail to handle the coronavirus. And I just really want to get your thoughts on it. I just realized I got to grab my charger. I'm not plugged up. 1 second.
Oh, okay.
But how do you feel about how he's handling it, Barry?
What, the coronavirus?
Yes.
Oh, it's the biggest disaster since Hoover tried to deal with the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And he's dealing with it the same way. He's not doing anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's basically said, it is what it is. I mean, that's what he is. That is his answer. He claims he's doing everything he can, but he's not, clearly, because other countries did more and they held down the rate of deaths and they held down the rate of cases. And gosh, I think I heard something astounding today, which is that we have more cases than the UK, Japan, South Korea, Australia, Canada combined. So you can't say, well, that's because we're a big country, because you combine those, that's a lot more than we are. So,
well, I tend not to comment too much on 45th, right? I mean, I respect the office of presidency. I don't respect him as the person in the office. And I mean, it's a joke. He's a joke. And he's making a mockery out of it as far as I'm concerned. But it really didn't hit home with me until I heard him say he's almost sure children can't get COVID. Mm-hmm. And I know personally firsthand that's not true. And
I want you to hold that thought until after the local brief.
Okay.
And let's talk about that, because James has a story to tell and you're going to be very interested. So let's go to the local brief.
Friday, August 7th, 2020. The city of Pasadena reports 2,035 confirmed coronavirus cases, a 92-case increase from last week. With 5 additional virus-related deaths, the death toll is now at 111. Earlier this week, the Los Angeles County Health Department released a statement explaining that technological issues caused an underreporting of cases in many cities, including Pasadena. Although other indicators like lower hospitalization numbers have shown the virus slowing down, the statement clarifies once the data reporting issues are fixed, the number of cases is expected to increase. During their meeting Monday night, the Pasadena City Council voted 6-2 against Vice Mayor Tyrone Hampton's ballot initiative on police reform. The initiative called for a police oversight commission with subpoena power and an independent auditor. The Public Safety Committee's proposal of an auditor who reports to the city manager and a civilian oversight commission without subpoena power was tabled and is still up for discussion. Many activists are disheartened with the remaining proposal. Juliana Serrano, a member of the Coalition for Increased Civilian Oversight of Pasadena Police, said in a Pasadena Now article that having both the police chief and the auditor report to the city manager didn't make sense. Serrano is quoted in the article as saying, "It doesn't achieve that complete independence that is really desired." Los Angeles County officials are seeking big, airy spaces to set up Wi-Fi-based voting centers for the November election. Although all registered voters in California will receive a vote-by-mail ballot, in-person polling places are still necessary. Schools have been the primary suggestion for locations, but there is concern over uncertainty of whether or not students will be on campus. Dean Logan, registrar recorder and county clerk, stated to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors that arenas and convention centers are being considered for the earlier days of voting. Logan clarified that a wider network of voting locations would open up in addition to the larger venues in the few days leading up to November 3rd. Don't forget about the 2020 census. More information can be found at my2020census.gov.
So, James, I know you have some strong opinions on the fact that the city council voted against the Reform Commission. And I'd like you to spend a little time talking about that, because what I've been hearing is that it was a flawed proposal. So I want you to kind of address that and also tell me how you feel.
Sure. So, Barry, there are 2 proposals that came before the council on this past Monday night. One was authored and if you will, sponsored by Councilmember John Kennedy and Mayor Tornick.
Okay.
In that proposal, that calls for a citizen, basically a commission. Council would get to appoint a person, police chief, city manager, and all. So it's another commission here in the city.
And that one passed, right?
No, that
didn't pass either.
That was not put up for vote.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's tabled for discussion for them to continue to flush out. Okay. There was also another proposal that Council Member Vice Mayor Hampton presented, which called for some different level of civilian oversight, separating out this auditor or ombudsman or whatever they're going to, call this person in this position, to take them out of reporting to the city manager and have them report directly to the council. And in order to do that, that would have required a charter amendment, which in order to do that, that language and document would have had to have been presented to the county registrar yesterday. So literally there was 3 days for the council to decide on language and decide if they wanted to move in that direction.
Right.
My thought is, well, let me go back to the Kennedy Tornick proposal. It's still on the table. Is it the best proposal? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I think there could be a little bit more substantive things, but those are still things that they can flush out. Who gets appointed? Who has this? There's still time to do
But
that.
I'm assuming it's just going to be advisory.
Right?
It's as most commissions are.
It is absolutely advisory. That's it. And that's all. It's a start. It is a start, and it's something that we didn't have. But what I heard, through community, and I sat through all 7 hours and 28 minutes of the last city council meeting watching, and nearly 4 hours of discussion, and 2 hours of them reading public comments. So much so they had to bring in 3 other people to help read the public comments. Wow. If you're listening to the community, and it depends on which community you're listening to, but if you're listening to the community, they wanted something a little bit more radical. And I think they wanted the opportunity to decide, let the voters decide if that's something that we are willing to have in our city.
And that's what Hampton was proposing. Right?
And I think that's what Hampton was proposing, in the sense that if it failed at the polls in November, it failed. I mean, it was, the people had an option. They had a chance to speak on it. But in this situation, what I saw Monday night was political theater on steroids, and it had nothing to do, or little to do, with police oversight.
What did it have to do with the mayor's race?
The mayor's race. And
really?
It was unfortunate to see that 8 people on that dais unravel, and there were disingenuous comments made. There were character attacks made. I mean, there was no solidarity. There was no cohesiveness. I mean, it just looked like utter chaos. And that's
unusual for Pasadena. That's very unusual.
I mean, no one got cursed, but it was.
No, but it's still unusual.
It still was. It was not the Pasadena way. I would have thought that the Pasadena way would have prevailed. And in that, I get not violating the Brown Act, but I do also understand things that can be discussed in closed session, and sometimes council members may parcel off with one another, but there was no cohesiveness.
Yeah, don't get me started on the Brown Act. I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to government. So do not get me started on the Brown Act. I'm such a contrarian on that, because when I was president of the Screen Actors Guild, you cannot do everything in daylight. If you try, all it's going to be ever is political theater. That's all it's going to be. And the way to get things accomplished, the way to get that cohesiveness you're talking about, is you've got to do some things out of the public eye. I mean, the best example of that is that the U.S. Constitution was entirely created in secret. And it never would have been created if it wasn't. So that's why You know, sunlight is great, but there's a downside to it, and I think you saw the downside on Monday night.
Yeah, it was. I'm disappointed.
A lot of grandstanding.
I am disappointed. You know, I almost feel like I want a refund.
Now, when you say it affected the mayor's race, I want to probe that a little bit. So, is that because Gordo took an opposite position from Tornek, or how do you think it affected the mayor's race?
Well, simply because you have an incumbent who's obviously there, and you have a sitting council member who is on the dais as well, and and they are both in a runoff.
Right. And so were they at odds with each other during the meeting?
They are not on the same page in terms of this citizen civilian oversight.
Where is Gordo regarding this civilian oversight?
Gordo has stayed consistent with his message, which is he'd like to see oversight for the entire city, not just the police department. That's been his message when he appeared on my show, The Conversation Live. That's been his message at community forums. I've seen him consistently say that. I've also, you know, with respect to Mayor Tornek, I've seen Mayor Tornek evolve on the conversation around police civilian oversight. So it's not that I believe either one of them are against it. I think the nation has been forced to confront this in a way that before there wasn't an appetite. I mean, that's not a secret. This tried to come up 4 years ago, and it was, you know,
so
kicked
what
out.
was the reason that it went down, or both of them? Well, one didn't come up for a vote, so maybe Hampton's went down because the other one will come up for a vote at some point. Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. So the mayor never intended for his proposal to be moved to he wasn't prepared to motion call for a motion for it to go to vote.
So there's still hope for that motion.
Well, yeah. And I believe something will happen. I don't know what will happen, but I believe his intention on Monday night was to further the dialogue with an open session, give other council members an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Okay.
And, you know, they can flush that out as we go. With Hampton's proposal, I think there just wasn't enough time for some of the other council members. And as we see by the vote, 6-2 against, 6 people didn't feel that this was the right decision.
Yeah.
I did find it a little bit ironic that not even the mayor supported Hampton's proposal. That seemed a little interesting to me, you know, because if we all want the same thing and we kind of have a different way of getting there, I understand that they're two entirely different proposals.
Mm-hmm.
But if, Mr. Mayor, you want civilian oversight, here's an option, you shot it down. That shocked me, you know, and I could hear the crowd outside. You go, oh. So that was a little surprising.
So what are next steps? Where are we?
Next steps is they'll continue to discuss it. I have not seen next week's agenda just yet. It is published. So I don't know if it's been agendized for next week or if it's tabled. We'll have to wait and see. Keep
us posted on that. Okay.
Absolutely. And Andre,
of course, I know you will on your show as well. So
you can definitely check the Conversation Live.
Right.
We're doing regular updates and talking with some of the actors that are involved.
Good. That's great. In the last few minutes that we have, and we might spill over because I really want to hear this story. You've had a personal encounter, at least your family has, with COVID-19, James.
Yes.
And I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, COVID is real, people. I have a situation where 5 of my immediate family members contracted COVID, including my 5-year-old son. My wife and my daughter and myself, we tested negative. My mother and sister are in isolation, and there's absolutely nothing you can do really to help them. So when I hear the president say that he's almost sure kids can't get it. Well, you're an idiot. I know firsthand that it is real, and there's.
And more importantly, they can transmit it.
Yes.
It's not necessarily that they're going to be that sick,
Correct.
but they can transmit it to people who are more vulnerable in the population.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep a mask on a 5-year-old? I mean, are you dealing with that now?
He's for the last 6 months been socialized that way, and so it's not a big deal to him. But more importantly, how do you isolate a 5-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And so he's everywhere in the house and, not sick or anything and needs to get energy out, touching everything. And so, we pay a king's ransom for some Lysol and Clorox wipes now. It's just an unfortunate situation.
Wow. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, if you don't know anyone who has had this, now you do. And, it's real.
It's real.
It's not just it is what it is. It is what it shouldn't be.
I know
what it really is.
We're 30 seconds before we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But there is nothing more helpless than having to take your 75-year-old mother to the emergency room and drop her off like she's a drive-by victim.
Yeah.
Leave her at the door.
I hear you. Why don't we continue this a little bit on Facebook? We're going to keep going after the end credits. So we're going to wrap up now. I'm Barry Gordon.
And I'm James Farr.
This is NewsRap live at 5. Meet us in Studio B.
See you on the other side.